What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Young, Educated, Uncertain podcast. This is your host, Rashad Young. Today, I am honored to be in the presence of a filmmaker, a writer, a creator. Her name is Mia. She's from St. Louis. She has a new movie coming out very soon, correctly, called Honorable.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we're going to talk about that in just a second. But Mia, how are you today?
I'm well. Thank you for asking.
How are you mentally? How do you feel about everything that's going on in the world? Obviously, it's a very um, interesting time. A lot of truth is finally being exposed. How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on everything?
Oh, my thoughts on everything. Well, how I feel as it relates to the unrest. You got the social unrest that's going on, and then also the pandemic. I feel heavy at times.
Mm-hmm.
Like in particular, this week has been heavy for me. I've been dragging a little bit, and trying to bounce back into my regular routine has been difficult. So I've had to be really mindful of reserving my energy, especially when it comes to online conversations, just what I'm exposing myself to.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if you don't engage in every conversation,
Mm-hmm.
just seeing so much content can
Mm-hmm.
really drain you.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to really limit myself in a lot of areas so that I can try to get back to my sense of self.
No,
In that,
I agree wholeheartedly. I feel like that from the media standpoint, I think we as people, we're just trying to stay engaged with what's going on first and foremost. But obviously, you're seeing a lot of ignorance, a lot of negativity. You're just seeing the same thing kind of going over and over. And as you said, it is very tough to, I guess, try to center yourself in this type of moment because, whether you're working or not, or if you're in a corporate environment or not, I think it's very tough to be a Black person in those type of spaces because there's kind of this silence when it comes to these type of conversations of that we have to maintain professionalism, act like nothing is going on in the world. But we also know that, once we leave that place or, since we're home right now, we have to kind of go back into that world of trying to know what is going on and trying to be positive, trying to enlighten people, trying to educate people about that type of stuff. And I think the frustration about that is that it's very hard to sit around and act like everything is okay if we know that it's not. This is something that we've all have been talking about. Our parents have talked to us about this type of stuff. Um, Histories continue to repeat itself over and over and over. And I think it's very tough. I think it's very tough to even find the spaces for that. And I'm just thankful that, you're doing good. I'm thankful that you're trying to find your way moving. And, with this film, and I'm gonna let you talk about it in just a second, I feel like it ties into the importance of Black filmmaking, and especially telling people our history and the truth of the various leaders and people that have had, taking their stance on social change and that type of stuff. Uh, so without further ado, talk to me about Honorable. What is that about? What is the origins? How was that created?
well, first I want to say thank you, Rashad, for having me,
Of
um,
course.
for taking this opportunity or for giving me this opportunity to talk about the film Honorable.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, my name is Mia Bible, and I am an actor and filmmaker born and raised in St. Louis.
Okay.
Honorable is my first indie short film, and it is a story about reconciliation. So essentially, Honorable takes place in the summer of 1964. A fractured brotherhood hangs in the balance.
Mm-hmm.
9 months before Malcolm X Shabazz is assassinated, and 2 months after he denounces the Nation of Islam,
Mm-hmm.
he has a chance encounter with his
Mm-hmm.
former brother and mentee Muhammad Ali in the heart of Ghana. And they make a choice on whether or not they are going to reconcile their friendship and reconcile their brotherhood. And so that's just the gist of Honorable as far as where it came about. It started off actually as an opportunity for me to practice my craft. So, like I said, I'm an actor, I'm a filmmaker, I've been writing for a while, but I went through a period where I just wasn't being creative.
Mm-hmm.
And I just needed to do something. And so I reached out to two actors that I know that are actually going to be playing Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X. Jason Little, who's playing Malcolm X, and Zachary Clark,
Exactly.
to be playing Muhammad Ali.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like a story that was originally a 3-minute scene. And I was like, hey, like, what if I wrote this like story about Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, like, let's just see what happens. And it could be something that we put on our reel, and X, Y, and Z. Then I began to do my homework about these icons. And that's when I discovered that they actually had a relationship, and not just a relationship. They were brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm X was not just Ali's spiritual advisor. Like I said, in the span of 3 years, they got extremely close. And then out of nowhere, their relationship was just torn apart. And as I began to dig deeper into that, like wanting to know why, that's when I began to see the different factors that was at play that I say strategically and surgically deconstructed their relationship and ripped them apart. Yes. And so for me, the last part of it was when I came across an excerpt in Ali's autobiography, The Soul of a Butterfly. And he talks about Malcolm X, and there's just a yearning of closure that I felt that he didn't receive. In a particular chapter, he says that, one of his biggest regrets was turning his back on Malcolm X the last time that he saw him, and that he wished he had one more chance to tell him that he was right about everything and that he was sorry. And when I read that, that struck me. And then from that point on, it was, I want to rewrite history, and I want to give Ali the closure that I felt like he never had. And that's where the story came from.
That's beautiful. That is well. I'm actually excited to see it, just because I have studied them both. Obviously, from Malcolm X standpoint, I think there's a lot of misconception about Malcolm X and who he was as a person, just for the simple fact that his views were a lot more aggressive than King's when you look at it from a whole societal standpoint. And Muhammad Ali was obviously one of the greatest boxers of all time, transcended the change for athletes and social change and that whole aspect of it. I was actually watching Ali like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I remember that scene. I think they were in the hotel, and then Malcolm X talked about going to Ghana. I never really understood that whole dynamic until your movie came about. But as you mentioned, you say you've been doing this for a while. How did you get into writing movies? When did this start? When you were a kid, college? When did this happen?
Well, filmmaking is something I just recently got into. I've been acting on and off for about 7 or 8 years. Writing is something I began doing when I was a kid. It was a lot of poetry, short stories, but it was not anything that was really focused into a particular lane. And it was, for me, filmmaking is just a natural evolution of storytelling. I consider myself a storyteller, and especially, I believe that you can also speak to this, like being from St. Louis, you have to make it happen yourself, and we do not have a large, film industry at all. And so I would see these different projects that are being made or, not being made, either about Missouri or about St. Louis, but not in St. Louis, or I'm seeing a lot of stories that are about Black narratives, but they're not by Black people. And it was just like, what, I don't want that to continue. And so, like I said, it was just, filmmaking was something that I felt like it's the next step when it comes to storytelling. And I want to be able to control as much as I can the Black narrative from a Black body, from a Black voice. And that's really where this passion and, curiosity for filmmaking came about.
No, that's beautiful. I was talking to a couple people that are from St. Louis. One does music, one does clothes, and we all kind of talk about the same thing. That St. Louis is such a small market um, for wanting to kind of expand upon that. Obviously, like for music, for example, I use hip hop. Most people go down to Atlanta or LA to make music because that's where things happen. From a fashion standpoint, most people do the same thing. They go down south to the East Coast, West Coast, but you'll never hear about the Midwest popping with that type of stuff. So, what is it about staying in St. Louis and really making that mark important to you?
Well, one, it's where I'm at. So I'm not someone of the belief of, you know, leaving to make it happen. I feel like if you're not doing the work where you are, you're less likely to do the work, you know, somewhere else. Now that doesn't mean that, you know, if you put yourself in a more, you know, conducive environment, an environment that really nourishes your artistic and creative side, that you'll do more. Yes, but I just feel like, you know, I'm this pond that I'm in now, like what am I doing here where I'm at before I desire to go to, you know, somewhere bigger to try to build on my dreams. It's not, and I don't have a desire to like make St. Louis the next Hollywood.
Mm.
I'm not, you know, trying to do that. I'm just trying to use what I have where I'm at. And I'm also like not a believer that I was born to pay bills and die. I know you've seen that meme.
Oh
And
yeah, all the time.
okay, like I breathe off of acting and filmmaking. Like I have to be creative in order for my life for me to really feel alive.
Hmm.
And so that's really what it is, or the drive behind me to just, like I said, do what I am doing where I'm at right now.
No, that makes perfect sense. I think everybody has their own reasons for, um, why they leave, why they don't leave. I've always said that too, that you don't necessarily have to leave to make something happen because a lot of people who make it in certain places, they were already probably from there, and then other people just kind of jump ship.
Mhm.
One thing that I think is our biggest issue is that we don't support one another to the degree that we probably should. I know that you're not the only filmmaker out here making films, but I always say, imagine you put all you in the same room. Yeah, I just worked on something so big. Imagine what that would actually do, especially to the Black narrative, which is very important. We have all these films like Ali, like the story of Jackie Robinson, other great people, Malcolm X, MLK, that aren't necessarily directed and written by Black people, which leaves a lot of the Hollywood aspect to be questioned within the movie. Because there's some things in the movies that you see, you're kind of like, I don't know if that really happened.
Like,
Right. And so, um, what is it about the narrative that is so important for you that you want to convey that message of, especially in this film? What is it that you're trying to get out of between the difference between Malcolm X and Ali?
well, the two biggest narratives that I want, you know, the audience to walk away from, like I said, this is a story about reconciliation. You know, how do you reconcile with someone who has different beliefs than you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's something that I feel we are seeing right now when it comes to like the social unrest and what's going on, you know, globally.
Mm-hmm.
And just specifically if I want to just talk to, you know, Black people in the Black community, you know, we all don't think the same and we all don't share the same beliefs, but the path to our, you know, liberation is, it's not just one journey, it's not just one method. So how do you, you know, reconcile with someone who believes or has a different method than you? How do you come together and move forward in that? And that was something that Malcolm X and Ali didn't have the opportunity to figure out before, you know, Malcolm was assassinated. And they were on the same path as far as what they believed and what they think and what they thought, but there was influences that, you know, drove Ali to the path that he went. He was very young. He was about 16 years younger than Malcolm X.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of things he had to figure out for himself in that pivotal moment in that window when Malcolm X was splitting from the Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was the risk to his life. If I follow Malcolm, you know, as I have been, if I denounce, you know, Nation of Islam as well, like, what does that mean for myself and my life? And also, what does it mean that this man who brought me to this religion is now turning his back? Like, do I trust that? So it was a lot of different things that he had to consider, but they never had that opportunity to figure out, how do we still walk together, even though right now we don't share the same beliefs.
That's actually going to segment to another question I have. Obviously, with the social unrest that's going on, unfortunately, the media likes to spin this narrative of there's a problem with leadership in the Black community. They say this all the time, and I'm just asking for your own personal opinion. What do you think we need to have a cohesive unit of voices in the Black community?
Well, I guess my question would be, you know, what do they, you know, whoever they are, what do they mean when they say, you know, cohesive or unified? Because from what I do see unity in our voice. I do see leadership within the Black community at this time. I believe that leadership looks a lot different than during the civil rights, you know what I'm saying, movement, because that's what we're being compared to. And
Yeah.
we have very, you know, few but very distinct leaders that was leading that movement. And now, you know, that conversation came up, like, where's the leaders? Where's the leaders? Well, we're here, you know what I'm saying? And it's like the issues in St. Louis are not going to be identical to the issues in Minnesota, you know, but there are universal collective actions, things that we're calling for, that I see that, you know, the Black people are communicating and pushing towards. But then there's also different things given to, you know, your area. And so I feel as though we are moving in the right direction, and that we are already doing those things as far as communicating within our own community, our own local community, but then also communicating to those outside of us to see, like, what is it that you're pushing that is common, that we also can be pushing as well.
No, that makes perfect sense. I think the same things we've been talking about for years. Education, that's always number one.
Mhm.
Um, Police brutality is number two by far. And I think people have to understand that we're talking about the heinous acts of individuals who obviously are doing it based off the power and understanding the power structure with race.
Yes.
It is the system that comes with police brutality. Because ignorant is ignorant, but obviously when you're able to hide behind a system, it makes it a lot more justifiable in their eyes to continue to do it. That is the issue that I think that we're continuing to deal with.
Yeah.
As far as leadership, I always say this: it's kind of hard to have a cohesive leader when the leaders we did have were killed. You know what I mean? So that's something that they never want to talk about. You know, but people who try to push that back on us is that our prominent leaders were killed. You
Mm-hmm.
can agree with one side that was rather aggressive. Dr. King had a non-violent approach, as you know, as they say, and he was killed off as well. So it's like, what do you want? We're trying to voice these different things of what
Right.
we're desiring, and we're finding ways to not have those leaders be on the forefront, because now, as understandable, I think some people will be afraid to take that leap of
It's
faith and put their, yeah, and know that, you know, they're going to have a target on their back too, because most of us already have targets on our backs, whether it is from police, you know, systemic racism, or just society itself. You know, it's very hard for us to um, move on a day to day, and I don't think people understand that. Is that okay? From when we leave our house, it's already a bunch of different pressures that we have to deal with on the day to day. There's different fears that we probably have, or that's been ingrained in us on the day to day. And for the most part, we're just trying to normalize a lot of issues that we shouldn't have to normalize anyway. But it's just one of those things of, you know, like me and my friends were talking the other day. You know, we still have to go to work. We still have to be a part of these Zoom meetings, and there's a color disparity between myself and my coworkers. And
right.
then when these issues come about, they're asking for your input. But I'm like, you want me to speak on behalf of an entire community, my viewpoints can be entirely different on what is going on.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's the thing that I don't think people truly understand, is that not everybody thinks the same just because we have the same skin color. Because on the other end too, you also have white individuals who are protesting as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they don't necessarily agree with what's going on either. So those are things that we have to keep in mind. But kind of staying on the filmmaking track, what are some hardships about being a creator in the film industry?
Well, right now the hardship would be the pandemic. And so which that came left field,
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
out of nowhere. And so Honorable, I started building this in September of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So we entered pre-production, I want to say March of this year, like March of this year. It was right before right before the stay-at-home orders hit. And so originally I was supposed to film this in April, and right when those orders came in, it was like, okay, so how do you continue to make a film when you can't be by anyone? You know what I'm saying? Like when you can't, go outside for real without permission.
Mm-hmm.
So having to navigate that was difficult, but I believe that me and my team have been, we've done a really good job in staying plugged into the film, like making sure that we are doing everything we need in pre-production, so that production and post-production is a lot easier, on us. And this pandemic helped me see that I actually needed more time than what I gave myself to make this film. Yes, I was really aggressive, and that, that comes from, like I said, this being like my first indie short film. I was like, I know what I want. This the weekend, we're gonna do it, boom, boom, boom. And then that pandemic came and was like, okay, sis, hold up, pull back.
Yeah.
And it just gave me time to get more of my ducks in order. Another hardship would be like experience. When you're green, when you're new to this, you don't necessarily have all of the resources to help bring your project to life. And for example, like later this month, I'm going to be launching a crowdfunding campaign for Honorable, so that I can, finish what I started and actually bring this story that I truly believe in to life. And a lot of times, as indie filmmakers, and depending on where you are, you won't have the funds to do that. And so I am really looking forward to putting this in front of the people and, allowing them to contribute to the story as well, and bringing it to the forefront as well.
Yeah, I can imagine the pandemic definitely probably slowed that down. And I can definitely understand the feeling of being green and just want to put it out. That was the same way with my first book. I was like, I'm going to put it out on this date. And I've learned it's not going to go anywhere. There's always different ways you can strategize, and it definitely would have made it better. But I definitely know the feeling of you ready, you want to put it out, and you're excited. And that's good. Okay, so ideally, if the world, opens up as is, when do you think the movie will be done? In your perfect world.
In my perfect world, I would, I'm anticipating to actually release the film I would say winter of 2020. So we'll go into production this summer, late July, and then go into post-production. And I want to be able to release it October, November of this year.
That's rather quick. So I'm guessing that's about, how long would you think it will be? About 30, 40 minutes?
Well, that's what contributes to that timeline, is because this Honorable is a 10-minute short.
10 minutes short. Okay.
What I am filming and releasing this year is a 10-minute short.
Gotcha.
So this story is longer than that because it's kind of taken on a life of its own. But that's what I'm starting with. I feel like that's a very reasonable and attainable goal for where I'm at my level as a filmmaker.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. Okay. Well, yeah, that sounds a lot more, sounds a lot more feasible. Well, I'm excited to hear more about it. I appreciate you joining today. Where can people follow you at on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook?
Yes. So you can follow me. My name is Mia Bible, actor Mia Bible, MIABIBLE on all platforms. And you can follow the film Honorable Film on all platforms. So that is Honorable Film. And follow us, like our page, and we will be notifying everyone pretty soon within the next 2 weeks of launching the crowdfunding campaign. And so that is all the information as far as how you can stay up on what's going on with the film.
Okay, well, you definitely have my support. I appreciate you joining today. For those, again, please check out Mia Bible's film, Honorable Film, not Honorable Films, Honorable. That'll be coming out this winter. Well, you take care, okay, Mia?
Thank you so much. You take care.
You have a good one.
You too.